computer is giving us its interpretation of a steak. It's translating it for us. It's rethinking it rather than reproducing it, and something's getting lost in the translation.
Me. I'm lost.
The flesh. It should make the computer crazy, like those old legs pinching babies. But it doesn't, not yet. I haven't taught the computer to be made crazy by the flesh. The poetry.
For fuck's sake.
Oh, Seth Brundle, if only you knew. If only you knew. That was Jeff Goldblum playing the role of Seth Brundle in The Fly, a great movie. Definitely Cronenberg. Special effects and creature gross outs. The clip there, though, is basically getting to the point that his teleportation pods are run by a computer, right? So he has programmed this, that presumably he, on his own, but his computer operates the system. It manages the transport, and the computer itself must understand what it's transporting. And that's the crux of his realization, that the computer doesn't understand steak. So when they move the flesh from one pod to the next, and this was after he was experimenting with a baboon, I believe. So he programs his computer in the space of minutes, I guess. Get Brundle on your team pre-fly. So he programs his computer to understand flesh, the subtleties of it, I suppose. And lo and behold, he transports a baboon successfully. Then he does himself. Spoiler alert, there's a fly in there with him. And the rest is the movie. So the interesting thing is the reliance on the computer. And the point he makes is that the computer does not understand, doesn't appreciate the work it's doing. Essentially, it's transporting things from pod A to pod B without regard to the subtleties, the nuance, the flavor. And so Computer as Copilot is a reference to the tech of the day. We get something new all the time, but today is July 6, 2021. In the news, you will see that the GitHub people have launched their Copilot project. The Copilot project goes and it scours resources online. I don't know. I assume that it's got access to the public, non-private. So public, open source projects. Hopefully it's understanding licensing on the GitHub site itself. So all of the repositories on the planet are in GitHub in some way. So Stack Exchange, other usual places. Basically, it's doing what everybody does. You skim through Stack Exchange, you find some code that looks like it might work, and you either paste it in or learn from it and adapt it. And so the Copilot tool seems to be doing basically that, and up in arms about copyrights and whatnot. But essentially, the Copilot that GitHub has launched is just finding some code and pasting it in, and almost like its human counterparts, the appreciation of the subtleties and nuance of any particular code, snippet, excerpt, isn't essential. It may be lost on the pasting. So like transporting a piece of steak, a steak, between teleport pods, whatever they were, telepods, I like that. Blindly pasting in code or moving steak through telepods is it's functional, but there's no understanding of what's happening. So as you move through your day in the 21st century, more and more often, a computer is telling you, giving you advice or direction or reminder or perhaps some version of a truth. It could be a source of news. It could be a source of schedule, reminding, scheduling tools, calendar, right? Your map program, Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever, will try to tell you how to get from point A to point B according to your calendar, which will tell you when you want to get from point A to point B. And you may do some research, check out an article or a book, who knows. And more often those things are you're relying on a computer technology to do those things, to provide those things, to analyze those things, conflict resolution on your schedule. The person on the other end of the meeting has canceled, or traffic will delay your transit. Maybe you'd like to set up a Zoom call with some sort of enhanced background image that you don't need a green screen for anymore. So the computer is taking care of you. And maybe you're going to read some articles before on the way for some background information. Or maybe those articles were written by GPT-3, which is also responsible for the GitHub Copilot, at least somewhat. GPT-3 almost certainly trained for the Copilot application on all of that code we just mentioned, and more, perhaps. So does the GitHub Copilot understand the subtleties and nuance? I'm going to say no. Does Google Maps understand the subtlety and nuance of you and your journey for a particular meeting? I'm going to say no. And so on and so on. So the article you read, if it's written by some AI, does it care what the words are, or is it merely putting together strings of characters that match patterns and weightings, and its neural net has determined will probably score high on its algorithm settings, right? So the point is, as more and more people, pardon me, as more and more people are relying on these, on tools that are pure computer, right? Like I can write a piece of code that will test a couple of variables and will send you an email that a meeting is canceled, right? That's easy. But as things become more and more complicated, traffic routing, accounting for different variables, different time of day, and traffic conditions that it's gathering from different devices that are moving along these paths, and making assessments about, predictive delay, right? And then it gets more complicated from there. These are all things that are benefiting in some way from artificial intelligence, machine learning. The question, though, is does the casual user appreciate the fact that the information, the direction, the reminders, all these things that they may be relying on for maybe trivial reasons, maybe life and death reasons, the computer does not care in the slightest. It gets an answer correct or incorrect, and it provides you information ideally based on more correct or tending correct answers to its calculations and weightings and classifications. And so you receive a string of characters in the form of an article about some topic, and it is taken as true. If you are skeptical, perhaps you will see, maybe you don't even see the article from its source. Maybe you see it shared by your friends and colleagues in social media, and maybe you don't even delve into exactly why the article is saying what it's saying, why the headline is what it is. Maybe you don't even read past the headline. You would not be alone. So when when information is received, it is it's assigned some trust, perhaps because it's been shared by people you know and trust, or perhaps you just don't know. It's from the internets, right? That old meme. And so information has value no matter the source. Yes, we could argue that it's not information in every case. If you're a fan of Claude Shannon, and who shouldn't be? But the question is, what do we do when more and more computer provided, sourced, or perhaps even generated signals are reaching people, and the people are making their decisions based on those signals, and the signals are without the nuance, without that understanding, just like the steak. So that's the question. The part that works is very clearly the impression that people have that their computer is getting smarter, that it's learning, that it understands in some way, that it's reading your emails or reading your article and understanding it, and then it's building on top of that. The part that doesn't necessarily work, however, is just as we saw or heard in this case from Seth, is the computer that you're relying on, does it actually understand or care about what it's telling you? And at present, it does not. The soul of the machine is absent. And so my concern, the reason I'm talking about this today, is that when I see even simple things, an example I will give now is the grocery store, the local grocery store, after our year-long pandemic lockdown drama, which is over, by the way. As you know, the pandemic is done. Probably some computer somewhere is telling you that, even though actual learned people will say otherwise. But the grocery store, which is built for humans, now most of them, in order to support online ordering, delivery, pickup, all that, they have provided the online shopping tools for a grocery store. And again, grocery store intended to be visited. Pardon me. So your grocery store that is built for humans to go wandering down up and down the aisles was turned into a warehouse to enable Instacart shoppers and probably other services. And then the store itself, I know Kroger, for example, you can order for delivery pickup. And if you actually are in the store, you'll see people wandering around with big crates on carts, not normal shopping carts, but volume shoppers. And they're going through with their mobile device. I hope it's not their own phone. Wandering through the store, picking up items. And we hope when we order things that we're going to get what we want, because surely all this technology is going to make things better. Thank you, Phillips. Let's make things better. But in fact, when you place an order, for example, on a Kroger or other, I'm using Kroger because they're my local. When you place an order, you can say don't substitute. But if you seem to have forgotten to click that, or if you are not, if maybe it's your first time and you haven't seen this happen, you could order, say, gluten-free bread. It does exist. And either the system or the shopper may see that there is no gluten-free bread, even though it was shown on the as an available item during ordering. On your computer screen, you see the item you're looking for. Oh, my gluten-free bread. I cannot have gluten for whatever reason, and I would like the other items without these other food allergens and so on. So you've crafted your order and you have placed it, and you've based your selections on things that have been shown as available, and perhaps a substitution or two takes place, and you receive your items, and then you say, oh, I can't have gluten. And Kroger will then say, oh, we'll just refund you that money. And perhaps they'll even give you a $5 pat on the head for your troubles. So the confidence in the online ordering system would hopefully be diminished somewhat for our special shopper who has special requirements. I don't mean they're special they have some specific constraints, and they entered into this arrangement with those in mind and with the intent that they would be understood by the other end. And a gluten-filled bag of bread would not be included in their items, for example, because some people, if they're extra sensitive, maybe don't even want it. They don't want to even deal with the disposal part, right? Like, oh, I didn't want this, now I have to deal with it, and I'm allergic to it. Or, and it could be anything. It could be food allergies are occasionally an inconvenience and sometimes are life-threatening. So, everybody's different. And one would hope that the computer, when you place an order for an item and you've selected something gluten-free, that the computer, you would assume, a casual user might say, oh, I'm ordering gluten-free. If a substitute item is to be selected, it will also be gluten-free. But no. And even more interesting, the second, third, fourth time, it is entirely possible that an item will be substituted without having learned from these previous engagements, previous errors, and you're back where you started. So the question is, in this particular anecdotal version, and then more generally, does the consumer public, the people that, like myself and probably you, are walking around with a supercomputer in our pocket that is always connected to an even bigger supercomputer on the internets, in the cloud, are we giving these devices too much credit? Are we believing the headlines that AI will save us all, that computers will take our jobs? And this is not a rant about that, but the question, though, is when you assign trust to a system that you do not understand, what is the eventual cost, right? So that part that doesn't work is the fact that a computer is assigned all this trust, an algorithm that may have been trained over time without actual specific understanding by a coder, right? Is that possible deniability? Is that a question of liability? Like, oh, we own the software, the algorithm, we did the training, but we don't know how it works, and so sorry. So that may play itself out in the courts. Who knows? But the parts that don't work, in my opinion, and this would be something to speak to others about on this topic. Do we assign too much trust? Are we entering into a phase of our social development where we blindly trust algorithms and streams of data and information, and we base our decisions on these, and we have no idea how they are being formed, how the algorithm is selecting what I read in my Twitter feed? Is an article written by a computer? Or is it written by a human? Did it check its references? If it was a computer, or both, either. at some point in my travels, I suggested that AI or ML AI, general AI or AGI, artificial general intelligence. Pick your terms, pick your context. Should these algorithms and their results be considered with something similar to what humans have, which is a diploma or some certification, right? If you go, despite what you may hear from those who say college is not important, we don't need to go to college. I like when doctors go to college, maybe lawyers, maybe some other professionals, but those people that have these special roles that require higher education for extended periods of time, they usually end up with a diploma, a certification. You must be tested. Even in some states in the United States, I myself am an engineer, but I think it's in Oregon, for example. I couldn't call myself that unless I have taken a test and received a certification from a state entity or maybe county to enable me to claim that I am an engineer, right? Certainly computer engineering, I have no idea if there's a real legitimate certification, because how do you certify on stuff that's moving faster than your pencil could ever move on those Scantron sheets, right? So people get diplomas, they get certified, they have word of mouth, right? A doctor who has bad bedside manner and who maybe is too quick in the opinion of some patients to write prescriptions, and you can form your opinion and then you share it with your friend. Hey, do you know a doctor who can help me with my knee or my whatever? And they'll say, well, this one, but except that he was very quick to write a prescription for some painkillers. I'd rather, not treating the symptoms, not the cause, that kind of thing. So there is a human element on both sides. There's a reflection on what's working and what isn't in those cases, right? But when it comes to computer rendered advice on, maybe instead of speaking to your friend or going to see a doctor, you'll go online and you'll say, my knee hurts. And maybe you'll get some sort of you'll get articles written about cortisone shots or anti-inflammatories or cartilage maladies that cause breakdown or a variety of things, and they were all grouped together. Do you have the wherewithal to determine which are computer generated articles? Perhaps someone unleashed a GPT-3 article authorship application that skimmed over some articles on orthopedics and drug therapies for the knee condition, for example, and surgical options, and then they compose an article automatically. So you hope for the best. Do you understand where that article came from? Do you know that you're building a decision tree for yourself based on these inputs that came from an algorithm? Who knows? You could say the same about news, about search results in general. Do you know why you're being shown things? The other day I was listening to This Week in Google, another podcast, Leo Laporte and friends. And somebody was pointing out, the general discussion was about Twitter and the algorithm versus the chronological feed options. The value proposition, as they were discussing, is that Twitter offers you this curation based on whatever signals it's using. And you are offered a Twitter feed, I guess, based on their assessment of what you would like to see, and you are fed what you like. And one of the people, it's the same panel of people typically week over week. So one of the people there, I don't recall exactly who it was, but said, "Oh, I tried the chronological version. It was boring." like life itself, I suppose, which happens for most of us chronologically as well. So what do I do with it? Can I just see the interesting parts? Can I don't care if they're in the right order. I just want to see something that will get my dopamine. My adrenals need to be stimulated. I need to get worked up. I need to see pictures of kittens, whatever the case is. So, and this is a common problem. I've put in the show notes a link to Tristan Harris. Am I getting the name right? Yeah, sorry. Tristan Harris. I wanted to say, I wanted to check that I should have said Harrison, but it's Harris. Tristan Harris, Daniel Schmachtenberger, people along this intellectual trail that they and others are in some cases wandering down, in some cases clearing for others to follow. So the ethical considerations, the reaction that is sought in generating a content stream that has an agenda. If you're looking at, for example, a long time ago, the point was made, the difference between Google and Facebook, if ever this could be simplified down to a sentence, was that Google was sending you away. All right, you search for something on Google, knee surgery, and you get a bunch of links and you can click on them and it would send you somewhere else. And Facebook is inclined to keep you in the Facebook universe. And so rather than sending you away, it wants to keep you. It wants to keep feeding you things that are going to make you want to have more. Your best drug dealer, right? Facebook pusher. And so which one has the agenda? Well, Google makes money from advertising and traffic analysis. It understands now that you're looking for your knee is hurting. Let me start advertising some using their AdWords network. We can start advertising no matter where you go on the internet because we're connected to everything. So even though we're sending you away, we're not really. And Facebook is inclined to show you things that will keep you on their site, right? So the agenda that's encoded in the information you're being shown, presumably, ostensibly, as a utility for you, right? I have typed in a search string. I'm looking for an answer about my knee surgery or about what's going on this weekend in Vegas or whose birthday is it? Whatever the case is, I'm being shown information that I hope is answering my question, is solving my problem, addressing a need. But the agenda of the computer, of the algorithm, of the information displayed is possibly different, and in fact often is. And when you couple that with the fact that more and more algorithmically generated content is built on signals that you don't necessarily know or understand, and look no further than the smart speaker debate about how I don't even own a cat, and I was talking about cat food all day, and now I keep seeing advertising for cat food. Maybe. Clearly hearing you say cat food, and if you own a cat, that's fine. I don't. That's also fine. But if I talk about cat food all day and I start to see cat food advertisements, what you're seeing is an algorithm hearing the terms, associating it with a paying client, an advertiser, and presenting you with advertising regardless of whether it's relevant to you because, you said the words, they must be relevant. And without clear understanding of the origins of that motivation, one might take these ads as, I guess I should buy, hopefully it wouldn't be this simple, but hopefully I guess I should buy cat food. I didn't even know I needed it. Obviously a silly example, but as more and more trust is placed in the algorithm without more and more understanding, we run the risk then of the levers in our brains being operated by people, or more interestingly, computers that we have no connection to, blindly following the information presented to us on our little glass rectangle. I think the news industry will be, and obviously we've been pelted with the fake news term. The news industry will be an interesting one because it is ever more possible to present a spin on a story, an angle, a viewpoint, an agenda, based on not only from where the article is consumed, i.e. if you are of a particular political bent, you might visit particular websites and news sources. So right away, you can be fed news from that particular viewpoint. And then when you share those, they are boosted to friends that are like-minded, for example. So the algorithm is taking your work, your effort, not your work, but your effort of sharing. It's using it as a signal to present to your friends, and your sharing has assigned that article or information some extra trust and appeal, but it is being algorithmically presented and boosted to your friends and colleagues. And so crafting opinions becomes a joint effort between you and the unseen algorithm. And the question then is, just like our Twitter feed with the chronological versus curated, are we looking for something interesting, exciting, stimulating, or are we just looking for just chronological news with boring facts? Just give me a headline that gives me the numbers. How often do you see the unfortunate incident in Florida with the condominium collapse? The headlines have gotten a little bit better regarding the unfortunate locating of those who did not make it. So they will report 2 more found, and then a total death toll to that date. So if you look through time, you'll see a relative number and an absolute number. Historically, you would always see the more, but not the total, because the headline can be shorter, more brief, and more eye-catching if it says 2 more found. And if you keep seeing 2 more found, you might wonder how the accounting works. So if the algorithm is seeking to keep you engaged, keep your dopamine and adrenaline levels right where they want them. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but yeah, I think that's been shown time and time again. That's how you keep your readership. That's how you keep your eyeballs on your website and make money, is by keeping people engaged, and anger drives engagement. So the algorithm can feed you what you want to see, what you want to read, what you want to hear. In terms of podcasting, YouTube certainly does it with what content you will be shown, what the recommended stream of videos will include, and how quickly it adjusts. And so without the understanding of the agenda behind these things, is it possible that let's divorce ourselves for a moment from the agenda that has a profit motive or a political struggle. Let's just say it's a well-meaning, well-intentioned news source or publication or whatever. Some website somewhere. Maybe it's my website. Maybe my website is aiming to give you a nice stream of information in a particular interest area. It's a special interest group website tool with discussion, chat, whatever. So think of it as like a topic-oriented chat room, Twitter feed, whatever. And so some algorithm is curating it with the best intentions, but it starts to become based on its consumption of data for classification, it starts to become highly biased or anti-human. And we've seen this happen with Microsoft, I believe it was, launched a Twitter bot that would try to respond to tweets as though it were human, and failed the Turing test. Well, maybe it did pass it, actually, by becoming ridiculously racist in the space of days. I wish I could. I don't even know where to start looking for that one. Some algorithm somewhere would probably point me to it. But without knowing, the casual person may not even know what the Turing test is, right? So, am I seeing content? Am I listening to a customer service person on a phone call? Google is pushing this, where an AI of some sort has been trained to offer customer service and will include things like and pauses and casual spoken word interactions and nuance, but it's all computer generated. And there's been a question now, should the person that's making the call, calling into customer service or whatever, wherever they're seeking more information, should they be informed that they're speaking to a computer? And ideally, it wouldn't matter. But what if our algorithmic friends are misguided and they start going down this path that nobody really understands? Because you can find, this is an exercise left to the listener, you can find countless articles that will illustrate the fact that quite often the level of certainty to describe how a particular algorithm, how a particular model, once it's trained, how is it working? Well, how would you conduct a malpractice investigation if your doctor isn't an algorithm, right? Can you look at its training history? I guess. Can you look at its education, at its previous cases? Perhaps. Can you weigh all of this out and determine where the fault was? Maybe. Can you debug based on that? Maybe not. Who knows? You certainly can't ask it questions unless it's some general AI, but a medically oriented artificial intelligence model would probably be trained in answering medical questions, not process and procedural, right? Like, tell me about my knee is very different from tell me about how you determined how to answer my question about a knee. Very different. You can ask a person that. So will your job be taken by a computer? Maybe. Will it be done as well with any sort of human nuance? That could be a while. And there will be times when that will be life-altering, not in a good way. So I think it's something to think about. I've been reading, sorry, I'm looking at my notes. I tend to forget things because there's so many things to talk about. I've been reading the third book of the History of Humanity. I don't know if that's what it's really called, but History of Humanity trilogy that Yuval Noah Harari published a couple years ago. I finally am, I think I actually finished it maybe 5 days ago, but I'm going over Homo Deus on the future of humanity. Again, part 3, it focuses on how religion will probably take a new form as we no longer need to rely on religious and philosophical arguments. We can look at the data and how computers will be the new source of truth for things, and total reliance on what our phone or what our implants are telling us, whatever the form they take. So it's an interesting, if not skeptical, viewpoint. I mean, he has a particular viewpoint, certainly, and you may or may not agree. It's still interesting. So the trolley problem comes up. Should your self-driving or autonomous vehicle become, well, if it's in a situation where someone will be struck, there will be a collision with a pedestrian perhaps over there, or the trolley problem is a trolley traveling on a track and there's one person on the tracks and more than one person on the other tracks, and do you throw the switch and save one or the other? And the cost function, which sounds horrible, but that's how computers work. So how do we decide which person will be struck by our self-driving car? Well, the car will make that decision based on some auditable calculations and weightings, and that's interesting from an insurance investigation point of view, but at the end of the day, it's being left to an algorithm, and that could be troubling. Algorithms are doing this every day, though. It's not so visible as it would be in a moving vehicle. Understanding how those things impact daily life, just like people don't need to go to college anymore. Well, wait a minute. Are you doing something that will impact the lives, safety, health of others? Should you know what you're doing? Should we have some sort of assurance that you know what you're doing? And so, should the same apply? Should the same apply in a way that the casual consumer, you and me, will be able to understand and compare, right? Anyone can tell you that you can. I've put a link to the Wikipedia article on GPT-3, and it has plenty of links. So use it as a jumping off point to find out more information. There are articles on the way it's trained, and there are applications and articles about how they're using it and all that. So start there. But if someone told you the article you read about your knee surgery was generated by a GPT-3 backed robot, it wrote this article based on a bolus of a corpus, I guess, a corpus of orthopedic articles, scholarly research, all so reasonable seeds on which to build a model to present an article that you could read and help decide your surgical path. But how will the casual consumer understand what that actually means? Do they understand classifying documents of adversarial networks of, what does it really mean to generate human readable content based on this? How does that really work? Nobody really knows how that works in humans, much less in a computer. I mean, not really. If and when that's truly solved, I guess that'll be a big day. So yeah, how is that going to work? And that is the crux of today's topic. Surely this is something to talk a lot more about. I have included in the show notes some of the links that I just covered. The Consilience Project is something I'm sort of interested in. It's Daniel Schmachtenberg and others. If you look at their advisory and governance and other people that are associated with it, it's kitchen sink. Everybody's in there. So I personally enjoy some of the ruminations by Daniel Schmachtenberg. He's a very smart person, very observant. I almost wonder if somebody could write an AI to build original content from all the content that he has created. That would be interesting. An interesting project. The Consilience Project is basically bridging the gap between the casual observer of the world, people who live in it like you and me, and the reporting of news and trying to share what's going on in the world. I think one of the challenges is presenting these things in story form as prose. That's another topic which I actually have covered already. Starting every show is a beginning or a middle on the FFS Talk podcast stream. No solutions will be found in these early days, to be sure, but the presentation of news in story form. Humans like stories. It's how we share through the ages, through our generations. In the face of huge data stores, we are converting things to prose that people can read with headlines that will grab their attention and will get more likes and shares on Facebook. So will the Consilience Project be one of hopefully several efforts to swing that pendulum back? Who knows? We'll see. I myself favor fact-based presentation, but again, that's a bigger topic for another time. We're coming down to. I'd like to keep this one short today, just because it was the holiday weekend. Obviously, coming out later than usual this week. But there's a tremendous. This is the future. The future will be presented to you through an algorithm, no doubt. And at least one, maybe others. Do you have the right, should you be given the wherewithal to select algorithms to know what's driving them, or will they just be black boxes, indistinguishable from magic? And you will decide things about life because you won't be going to work. Your job will have been taken. Hey, I'm a computer programmer. My job will become machine learning oriented and AI reinforced copy paste from Stack Exchange. So while we're sitting at home, presumably watching Star Wars movies from Disney, whatever they come up with moving forward, we won't have any real notion, if we're not careful, about how we're being fed certain things. So very clearly I have my own opinion on this. I would like to see more transparency. I don't think that's available. I think we have to understand when an algorithm doesn't understand what steak is, so that when we taste something funny, we can say, oh, well, this is computer generated. Has no idea. And by the way, there's I just heard the other day, there's a vat grown serum based actual animal protein, artificial meat, grown meat. I can't remember what the name of it was. So that's another topic again. But when our technology is going to literally and figuratively feed us, it would be good to know where it's coming from, right? You don't want to hear later that vat-grown meat is people, which is an entirely different movie reference. But knowing where, how, the science and technology, anyone who drives in a vehicle today, do you have any idea how your car works? I myself grew up with my first car was a Volkswagen Bug. I could, and I did, drop the engine, needed help picking it up, shocks, brakes, wiring. It was the people's car after all. So designed and built to be serviced by its owner. And so you could definitely learn, if you were so inclined, you can learn all about how your car was working and then get in and risk your life in airbag-free, dubious seatbelt contraption. Hope for the best. But nowadays, who knows how your car is working? You can perhaps use the OBS 2 port and get some data from it, but at the end of the day, could you really fix your own car if it's a modern vehicle? If it's an electric vehicle, forget about it. Those batteries are dangerous. Don't touch them. Definitely don't set them on fire. But so yeah, as we advance through into the future, will we have any idea what's going on, or will we just be watching it on our phones and trying to figure out what's going on, I guess. Anyway, so I thank you for listening. As you know, the show notes for these episodes will come at you from Substack. If you are looking at this on your phone, in your podcast player, your podcatcher, hopefully there's some description of the show. There will be a link to the Substack for the show notes. If you are not already subscribed to the podcast, presently we are distributing it through Anchor and its subsidiary platforms. Not subsidiary in every case, but through its partnerships and other relationships. So if you find us on Google Podcasts or Apple somehow, that's through Anchor. Self-hosting, the Origin show is coming soon, but for the moment, subscribe via Anchor, subscribe to the show notes via Substack. There's a weekend edition of a newsletter that's not associated with the show, kind of a wrap-up opportunity and some ideas for next shows. That's on review. So if you are listening to this and you look at the description for the show, there will be links to those. If you go to ffstalk.com on Twitter, I usually post tweets that point to these things. That's probably the easiest in the world we live in today. That's probably the easiest way to find something that you can click on. But yeah, in the show description on your podcast application, there will be links to the newsletters and whatnot. When you subscribe to those newsletters, that is the best way to support the show. This is not a money-making endeavor. It's an exercise in idea sharing. Although if you really want to support the show, you can join as a guest, which you are always invited if you have a particular topic arc that you'd like to bring with you, or you can select one that's on the growing pile of them. You can drop an email to join, as in join the discussion, join at ffstalk.com. Say where and when. That will be fine. And if you'd like to check out some of the various things that Dan Hugo, that's me, your host, is working on, I maintain a profile page at buymeacoffee.com. Conveniently, also a tip jar of sorts. However, don't feel obligated. I think 2 people so far have contributed to the bean fund, and I have some Robusta beans at the moment, some high caffeine Robusta. So that, yeah, the goal is to any proceeds there will go towards coffee. But there's a link farm. there's a bunch of links and a growing set of links, I would hope, to projects, podcasts, newsletters, and other things on that profile page. And I will post now and then about things like coffee, especially if people contribute to the coffee fund. So all the caffeine-fueled endeavors are appearing there. And again, not obligated, but check it out, bookmark it, revisit it. If you want to buy a coffee, like I said, it will very specifically go towards coffee, beans, or related equipment. And I will probably talk about that in an appropriate way at an appropriate time as I drink more coffee. So if you are still listening, and I haven't bored you to tears with my talk of coffee and newsletters, I thank you again. I think this particular topic is a great overarching topic arc, if that's even possible. The way that computers, algorithms, unseen technologies that we really don't understand, the way that those will impact us. I have a link to Yuval Harari's website in the show notes, in the newsletter. about Homo Deus if you are not familiar. Definitely worth checking out. Not the end all and be all, but certainly some food for thought. And whether that food has been transported through some teleport pods is for you to determine. So thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Take care.